Hi, welcome. I'm Ivory and this is Roz. And our topic today is animal totems. Before we get started, a special hello to all of our listeners in Gateshead, England. We see must be people telling each other because the numbers there just keep going up and up. It's so fun to think of you there all the way across the pond listening to our show and watching us. Thank you so much. We were just chatting about this. I was having some tech issues this morning, but chatting about this topic a bit. And just to let you know, if you don't know what totem animals are, here in the Southwest, we hear about them quite a bit. But it's a Native American tradition that says every individual is associated with different animals, usually one specific that will complement that person throughout their life. And they act sort of as guides, animal guides. And these different animal guides can come in and out of our lives depending on what direction we're headed in and the responsibilities that need to be completed on our journey. So the spiritual beliefs associated with having animal spirit guides is called totemism. And these beliefs stem from the idea that humans have a kinship or a spiritual relationship with spirit animals. Such beliefs originate with Native American cultures and tradition of hunting and gathering. A totem serves as an emblem of a tribe, clan, family, or individual. And members of the clan are not allowed to kill or eat their totem animal. I did not know that, but it makes total sense to me. I was very interested to know that. When I tell you about mine, I can guarantee you I've never killed or eaten my spirit guide. An animal totem, it can be seen on totem poles. You've seen those, but you may not understand the meaning or importance. But in Native American cultures, totem poles are monumental carvings that represent ancestry, history, people, or events. And animal totems are often represented on a totem pole as a talisman, an emblem crest, even on jewelry. So let's take the popular book and television series Game of Thrones, for example. In that show and book, each family has an animal that represents their house. And that show doesn't represent reality, but it does draw many ideas from cultures that are very much real and alive. So, Roz, what are your thoughts on this? I don't want to just ramble on here.
Well, I never heard that much about any of this until, of course, I moved to Sedona. And I mean, when you're in this area of the country, you're in the epitome of Native American culture. We're surrounded by their lands, their lands are independent nations within our country. They have their own laws, their own rules, and their own culture. And when I first moved to Sedona and I first heard about totem animals, I was fascinated because I've had a very interesting lifetime with great horned owls. Well, other owls too, but mostly great horned owls. And I just started thinking back in my life of all the amazing things have occurred since I was a child. And my dad was part Cherokee Indian. And so he would periodically say, there would be an owl outside of our house, and he would say, the owl's here to visit you. And I was a little kid, and I was like, okay.
I'll go with that.
So I guess I knew a lot more about it by experience than anything else. But I think it's fascinating because we all have an energy field. We all have a vibrational frequency around us, and animals most clearly feel that. And I think when you really think about it, the fact that their energy and our energy can be aligned makes perfect sense. So
It does.
I just
We're going to get into later in this episode, we're going to talk about the different ways that you can discover your own spirit animals. So you want to stay tuned for that. There's a multitude of ways, and it's very interesting. It's kind of like once it starts happening to you, and I'll talk about that later, but that's what got me interested in this and actually brought a good friend into my life because of it, who was knowledgeable on it. And I got a set of animal guide cards, which I'll talk about in the Patreon extension and show you those. But and so sometimes I have people come to me for readings who are much more into spirit guides, totem animals, or Native American culture than angels. And if they want a reading and they would like cards involved, I'll use those for them. You know, it's just good to have variety. But it's kind of interesting. Like Native American culture says that a totem animal is one that's with you for life. And that's both in the physical and the spiritual world. So even when you cross, that totem animal is with you. And people can associate with different animals through their life, but that one totem animal acts as your main guardian spirit. And this animal connection is shared either through interest in the animal, characteristics you have that the animal has, dreams, or other interaction. But this whole idea has been made famous in movies, and classically, when you see it in movies or TV, everybody's spirit animal is a wolf or an eagle or some other noble beast. And the idea of animal totems seems to be fraught with superstition. But the truth, I know people whose animal spirit is a bunny, a rabbit, who is a turtle, who's a spider. You know, I mean, there's many, many different things, and none of them are a negative. None of them are a negative. Some, you know, we'll get more into that another, like in the extension, but the idea has its own basis in being not only provided with guides similar to angels, but also in being guided or taught lessons by your totem animals. So let's kind of talk about that. What does a totem animal do? Like once you figure out what yours is, what do they do? And they're already doing it for you. Just because you don't know who your totem animal is doesn't mean you don't have one. So they're believed to provide protection and guidance on your life journey, much like angels. And depending on the animal, it can personify many different qualities and characteristics. They offer insight into your subconscious mind and bring important messages that can benefit you in your current situation. Your spirit or totem animal serves as a guide, and it will pop up at the right time when certain areas of your life need their attention. So why is it important to know who your animal guide, your totem animal is? You know, I honestly think you could go your whole life and not know, and you're still benefiting from it. But it's kind of cool to know, like you benefit from angels. That's my areas of expertise. You benefit from your angels, whether you ever know who they are or try to connect with them and build a relationship. I'm sure the same is true for totem animals. They're just there.
Well, and I think, you know, there's so many variations and differences in people and their personalities and their likes and dislikes. Some people are like, I consider myself to be, I think many of us are very earth oriented. And the animals of the earth are fascinating to me. And I think a lot of people feel a connection with these animals. And when you begin to realize that consistently over the course of your life, you've had these repeated kind of amazing and unusual situations occur with a certain type of animal, it starts to kind of make sense to you that somehow my energy and that animal's energy are connecting and pulling us to the same place at the same time. So it's pretty fascinating.
I agree. And to me, it's putting puzzle pieces together. You're listening to this show, you're watching this show because you're on a spiritual journey. You're on self-exploration path. And so what if you have been seeing this animal in varying forms and just seemed it was a coincidence? Oh, wow, I just tend to see this giant turtle, you know, whatever it is, you know, a sparrow, whatever. And you don't have that piece that, oh, that's important to me. So it's part of your spirituality. And honestly, knowing you have a totem animal can bring people hope and happiness. I think it's like having angels, and think about angel numbers. seeing 1111 or 222 repeatedly and then finding out, you're seeing them and it's interesting, like, I keep seeing 222. That's very interesting. And then somebody tells you about angel numbers, you look it up online and find out what that message is that you've been receiving, just seeing those 222. Very similar with seeing, let's say you're seeing an owl like Roz does, and you just think, oh, that's cool. I really like owls. And then you find out, oh my gosh, that's my totem animal. That is my spirit animal guide. That's pretty cool. It's another tie to nature, to Mother Earth, to making us just realize that we're all one. And so how to discover your totem animal. Let's get down to this, because I've had people come to me and ask about that. This is not my area of expertise, but I've certainly had my own experience with it. And I boned up on it because I wanted to be able to help them know how. So let's just say, have you ever felt like you've been seeing the same animal repeatedly, like Roz talks about owls? Maybe you've had several dreams in which an animal approached you or you had an interaction with them. If that's the case, it would make sense to ask yourself, is this my animal totem? Chances are, once you've asked yourself this question, a certain animal will pop into your mind. And even if it isn't what you'd expect, it's there for good reason. So there's millions of species of animals on this planet, not just eagles and lions and, the things you see in movies. So they all have specific values and characteristics that you might share with them that are valuable to you. They're strengths you have. And your animal totems can help guide you through your current life struggles. So we're going to talk about it. It doesn't require much work to figure out who or what your animal totem is, but it is an important step towards self-acceptance, grounding, and just all-around spirituality. So let's look at the different ways. Having an open mind is crucial. You don't want to go in going, I'm sure I don't have an animal totem. This is such baloney. Well, then you're going to have a very difficult time. So just say, I'm open. You might want to even say it out loud. I'm open to finding out who my animal totem is. First off, Roz talked about it. Notice your animal encounters. Have you had several encounters with a specific animal throughout your life? My gosh, Roz, how many times have you seen an owl estimated?
Oh my gosh. Might be in the hundreds. I mean, it's really been staggering. And it's so funny because I've always wanted to have owls around me. So you know how in my office,
I do
have
know
all these ceramic owls, pictures of owls. And I'm very comfortable with them.
Yeah. And so, maybe it does start in your childhood like it did for Roz, and it doesn't connect right away. But eventually, at some point, when you're meant to know about totem animals, maybe that's today for you, then it'll be made aware to you, which I think it's funny that I just had either heard about it and didn't really focus on it, or literally never heard about it for a very long time. And I've lived in Arizona since 75. So I am not new to the Southwest, not by a long shot. So if you've ever experienced an animal attack, like being bitten or chased, it could mean your animal totem is testing your ability to handle its energies. I hope that doesn't happen. I'll tell you more about mine and you'll understand why. So you can also meditate. Did you want to say something about that before we go on, Roz? Are you laughing?
Well, that could be scary.
It could be really bad. I'm just putting it out there. I do not want to have a physical encounter with my totem animal. You can meditate to call forth your animal totem. And of course, get into that subconscious state, let your conscious mind go and see what comes to you. So you can channel your inner guide, animal guide, through meditation. You can ask, what is my animal totem? And then go into your meditation. Roz and I are very big on setting intentions, putting your attention behind what you're doing, what you're trying to attempt to do, and not just like going into meditation and hoping you get what you're after. State it. Keep an open mind and don't overlook the animal that pops up, even if it's not what you want, not even close. I'm telling you, the ones with the rabbits have sometimes been really big, burly men who are really embarrassed to tell me that they're totem animal is a rabbit. And I don't laugh because I understand it's not about the size of the animal or our human perception of that animal. It's about certain qualities that animal has that you share. And it's not being fluffy and cuddly in the case of the rabbit either. Maybe they were. I don't know. I didn't hug them. Let's see.
Well, they're
So,
certainly amazing survivors.
oh, they are. They are. They hide well.
They're cunning.
They're lovable. So all animals have wisdom that's worthy and deserving of looking into. So if you and oh, a ladybug, what if it's a ladybug? You know, and you're like, oh, I don't want my spirit. You have, it is what it is, and you must embrace the qualities. Just read it, read about it. Coax your animal out of your subconscious with your imagination. Just open your heart and focus your thoughts until your animal guide appears. The next one is noticing what animals present themselves in your dreams. I really think this is a big one, and it's how I discovered mine. So have you ever dreamed of a certain animal more than once, generally repeatedly, especially in a short period of time? It just may be your totem animal introducing itself to you. Dreams are a subconscious way of processing emotions and struggles and thoughts, and they symbolize deep-rooted feelings we have not even fully accepted or acknowledged. But again, before you fall asleep, say it out loud. Ask yourself in the universe, show me what my totem animal is. It's very likely that having these thoughts in mind before you fall asleep will allow you to produce the imagery and guidance you're looking for. And just stating that you're on a journey, that you're open and ready to find out. Mine just happened. I didn't ask anything. So I think that was one of those divine timing things. Like when it's meant to happen, it happens. But don't forget to write down your dream, the day, the time, what you saw, the animal, what they did, what they look like, how it felt. All of that's important. Seeing one animal in a dream and a different animal in another could signify there needs to be a shift in attention somewhere within your life. And Raj, you hit on this one, spending more time in nature. Doesn't that just make sense?
Absolutely. And it's so just relaxing and soothing to be in nature. And it makes perfect sense that you would encounter your totem. So
Even if you work at a zoo and go ahead.
that door is always open to call, your energy to call that animal forth.
Even if you work at a zoo and there's all these animals at your disposal, you're limited by the animals that are in that zoo. So if you go outside, and especially in different locations, and you keep seeing the same animal, then that's more likely your animal totem. But the earth, animals are part of the earth like we're part of the earth. So it provides deeper connections to your human experience. And when you really focus, like before you go out in nature, I'm going to see my animal totem today. And you see it. And then next time, I'm going to see my animal totem again today. And you see it. The universe will present this to you again and again. I have some crazy stories, not about animal totems, but other topics where I asked for something and it was like kapow. So I don't see why it would be any different than this. Don't forget to observe things like insects, birds, and aquatic animals too. Your animal totem could very well be one of those creatures. So it doesn't have to be land-based. And here's one. I just think this seems like a no-brainer too. Learn more about animals that interest you. If you have a passion for a certain kind of animal, it might be your animal spirit, your totem animal, and it might just be your dog person, or cat person. That's possible too. But maybe if you have an interest in something other than your pet, an animal. What I have a real interest in my whole life is penguins. And if I didn't live in Arizona, I would have a penguin pet. Do you know they're like puppies? They'll hold your hand and go for walks and sit, cuddle next to you. Doesn't that just seem adorable? And they come with their own tuxedo. So I've always loved penguins. I should look that animal up. I will in the Patreon part in case you love them too. So if there's animals you've loved since childhood, you drew a lot, you think about them, or every time you see them, you get a really positive feeling. Those are all ways to find your animal totem. but often our animal totem or animals we're pulled to, not always. So if you're interested in this, in a certain animal, do some research about what that animal totem means for you. Roz, why don't you talk a little bit more about, like, I know as a child you saw the owl came in and your dad told you that owl was here for you. What finally cemented it for you that that is likely a spirit guide, an animal guide rather for you?
Well, I used to hike a lot when I was young, and it always seemed like somehow I would encounter an owl. I would be able to see it. I've always had amazing vision. So, I mean, I can see all kinds of things that other people don't notice. And it just seemed like there were all these incidents where I was encountering them either out in nature, or they would literally come to where I was living and be perched outside and be hooting. And this started when I was a child and just continued on. And it always a great horned owl. And I, when I was a kid, I mean, I just didn't really think that much about it. But I started to realize that I needed to compile the documentation, like write down, which I do have somewhere, the number of events where this occurred. And it was pretty staggering amount. I was thinking, wow. And I started to notice that every time some big shift was going to happen in my life, the owl came outside my house, was hooting, and I would, they're usually out at night, obviously. So, but not always. I mean, there were times when they would be outside my house in the daytime, and I would always go out and they would make eye contact with me, and we would just be kind of staring at each other, and they would continue hooting. And it always happened 3 days consecutively, 3 days in a row. And then they were gone. And I began to realize that 9 times out of 10, when they showed up, before I didn't even know it yet, but I was about to move.
I was wondering if it was about moves.
And I started to also notice that it could be about shifts in my relationships with friends, with family, with, significant others, it's always something that's like, it's news. News to me.
Like, heads up, heads up.
Yeah. And some of these encounters have been truly amazing. I mean, I lived in a part of Southern California where you would not imagine encountering large owls, but there were, when I first moved into this neighborhood, people told me, like, don't ever leave your small pets outside at night because we have these giant owls. And I was thinking, seriously?
Really?
Well, then my friend happened to be over and one of them flew over us.
Wow.
And this was just after sunset. And this was just a magnificent, huge, like when it landed on my roof, it was about maybe 3.5 feet tall from the top of the roof to where its little ears were.
That's a good size owl.
It was pretty shocking. And it wasn't the only time that it came to visit. And I mean, it's just been a lengthy life of these things. So
I think that's a clue by 4 with animal totem for you.
smack,
Smack, it's an owl.
And then when I moved here, that's when I realized I learned about the totem, that how the Native Americans believe the totems, about the totems and the significance and how those animals all have a meaning. And I realized, wow, this is pretty major stuff that I'm suddenly going, whoa,
An epiphany moment. Bong.
it was. So I think a lot of people, our lives are busy and we've got a lot going on and we're just not thinking about this kind of stuff. But when you start to really look at it and realize the number of times in your life that this has repeated itself with a certain animal, there has to be some connectivity there. So it's been an amazing adventure.
I can't say that I had dreams about the same kind of animal over and over until I lived in Cave Creek. And I was living there and my dreams have always been very vivid. And I started dreaming about a mountain lion. And that's why I never want to get into a physical tussle with my totem animal, because it was up like this, like attack, but I knew it wasn't attacking me. It was just showing me its might. And I thought it was awe-inspiring. And it was like I was standing looking up at the boulders that are in that area. There's granite boulders all through there. And it was on top of one of those boulders and I was at the bottom. And it wasn't going to attack me though, but it was just showing me its might. And then I had this dream so many times. And then there was dreams occasionally in there where the mountain lion was battling a ram. And so I'm like, what is going on? I don't dream things like this. And I mentioned it to a spiritual friend of mine and they're like, oh, you need to talk to a person that we know who is really into this, my friend Janet. And she's the one who said, Ivory, that's your spirit animal. That's your totem animal. And I never felt like, I thought I would be like a bunny rabbit, I would be something like that. So I definitely didn't expect that. But when I looked it up, there are qualities I could understand. I need to look up that ram a bit more because I kept seeing that too. So it probably has some meaning. But then before that, I have to say, like waking encounters, just listening to what you say about the owl brings back so many memories, Roz, because I've had owls at so many houses, including the one I live at now. And they sit in that big tree, and that ancient tree in my front yard that gets blossoms on it, and hoot every night. But when I lived in the Prescott area, I heard about this old barn that was abandoned out in Chino Valley, and that there was a giant white owl that lived in it, and it came out at night. And so I went there a few nights and parked nearby, and I saw that on full moons. I saw that beautiful, probably a 5-foot wingspan on that owl. Every night it would fly around. It was just gorgeous. It flew right over my car once. It's like just crazy. And I lived in another place I lived in, Cave Creek, was close to I-17 freeway, and it was apartments. And I lived on the top floor, like a second floor of an apartment, and I kept hearing an owl. Now, this is an urban area. This is, a little out, but in the urban area, I'm like, what in the world? And I would go outside on my balcony, and I saw a big owl on the railing right across from my balcony, like across the parking lot. I could see it there hooting. It was there maybe 30 or 40 different times. And so I never really thought about that. And some of that was all before the mountain lion. So I guess I should look that one up too. So hopefully hearing all this talk about how you might find it, what kind of animals it can be, any kind of animal is the answer, and how you can discover yours. I hope that sets you off on a journey. Honestly, it's about finding your true path, learning many lessons, and stretching yourself for personal growth. You can join us on Patreon. We're going to be doing an extension of this topic. We'll be showing you a deck of animal guide cards and talking about the characteristics of certain animal totems. So if you're curious about that, you can join for free for 7 days and watch all of the videos, read articles, and participate in any events. And we are under Sedona Soul Sisters on Patreon. So check us out there. And in the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.